A girl with a graceful figure got up to pull the curtain. Just then a hooligan entered the room. Seeing the girl's figure, his eyes immediately lit up. The girl didn't pay attention. After patting on her coat, she lay down beside her boyfriend again. But the next second the hooligan pushed aside the curtain. There were also a group of men behind him. They and the boyfriend were all security guards at the drilling site because they had lived in a remote place for years. Coupled with the influence of alcohol, this group of people summoned up their courage and tested the boundaries of crime again and again. The colleagues behind also didn't care about making trouble and just wanted to watch the excitement. The girl's boyfriend couldn't stand it anymore. He kicked the hooligan off the bed. Unexpectedly, instead of restraining himself, he became more and more aggressive and kept provoking. Since they were all colleagues, the man didn't want to make it too embarrassing for both sides, so he pushed the hooligan out and then pulled the curtain shut again. At this moment, these people revealed their true natures. Because the girl was an indigenous Indian, so they didn't care at all. Seeing his girlfriend being humiliated, the man gave up all his self-restraint and started attacking the instigator fiercely. Seeing that this guy was about to be beaten to death, the other colleagues quickly came up to break up the fight. These people quickly held the man up. Seeing her boyfriend being controlled, the girl rushed forward without hesitation. With this action, everyone lost their minds. The scene instantly turned into a chaotic brawl. Seeing that the two of them were not unconscious and motionless, the hooligan pounced on the girl. Without thinking at this moment, the man stood up again. Instantly seeing his girlfriend being bullied, he already had the intention to kill. However, just as the crowd was beating up the man and the woman, the girl put on her pants and struggled to get up. She took one last look at her boyfriend. The girl chose to go out and find the police. But in this desolate snowy mountain area, there was no signal and there were no roads. To find rescue, she had to run at least more than 10 miles. But with the temperature below -10 degrees Celsius, she fell to the ground not long after running. On this day, when Kale was hunting in the mountains, he suddenly saw something moving in the snow. He quickly changed into white clothes. Then, he took his equipment and followed the footprints to the front. After walking for a while, he saw a person lying on the ground. He looked up along the footprints and found a touch of blue not far away. When he got closer and took a look, the girl had already been frozen into an ice block. The most crucial thing was that she was Thalassa from Switzerland. Seeing such a scene, Kale was extremely heartbroken. He took out the walkie-talkie and reported the situation. Soon the FBI sent a female police officer to investigate the cause of death. Since the body had already turned into an ice block, it was necessary to let the forensic doctor conduct a further identification. Kale was the best hunter here. Not only did the residents in the town know him, but he was also very familiar with the environment of the surrounding snowy mountains and the routes as well. But according to the analysis of the footprints, Kale speculated that the deceased had been running all the time, because she inhaled too much cold air. It led to congestion in her lungs. And finally, after her lungs ruptured, she was choked to death by her own blood. The problem was that in this desolate wilderness, why was a girl running barefoot? And she ran such a long distance. What on earth had she experienced? After the forensic doctor's identification, it was found that the girl's head had been burned by some kind of gas, and she had been humiliated before that. Astria wanted the forensic doctor to write homicide on the identification report, but the forensic doctor said that the girl had been frozen to death. As for what caused her to run in the snow and then the congestion in her lungs, it was not within the scope of his identification. And once it was written like this, the FBI would not send an investigation team to solve the case, and this case would be left unresolved. So Astria, who was on her own, wanted to solve the case. She could only rely on herself. In order to learn more about the situation, Astria went to the girl's home. Right from the start, she accused the girl's father of not fulfilling his duty well. But the father said that Thalassa was an adult. She had her own freedom. After hearing these words, Astria thought that this family was very cold-blooded, and they didn't care at all about the death of their daughter. And when she saw the mother, who was torturing herself out of grief, she realized how ridiculous her previous thoughts were. It turned out that the father's indifference and hostility, it was more about the indifference of the government behind Astria towards the indigenous people. After a while, Kale also came to visit the father. As soon as they met, Vale's eyes welled up with tears. Kale could understand Vale very well because he had also lost his own daughter, and he didn't even know the cause of her death until now. His family was also torn apart because of this. Since Thalassa's father didn't know who his daughter had contact with, so several of them decided to look for Thalassa's brother Echo. This area can't be said to be an absolute lawless land with the pitifully small number of police officers. It can't really be considered well governed either. Whether it's the few police officers or the remaining criminals, their lives are at the mercy of fate. Wealth and honor depend on heaven. And after the sheriff knocked on the door with Astria, Kale habitually wandered to the back of the small house. Soon a tall and burly hooligan opened the door. They asked him if Echo was there, but he had improper thoughts about Astria. When he heard that she was from the FBI, he immediately took action. Their eyes done, Hunting braced himself and rushed into the house. The whole room was like a garbage dump. Hunting, who had resolved the crisis, originally wanted to call an ambulance, but the sheriff told him that it would take at least an hour for the ambulance to arrive. It was completely unnecessary. When the two of them entered the house, Echo had already been tied up. He had thought that the police were there to arrest him. He didn't expect that after talking, he found out that his sister had died. The purpose of their coming was just to ask him if he knew who his sister's boyfriend was after her death when the police were handling the body. There was a continuous trail of a sleigh. What was suspicious was that there were only tracks going there and no tracks coming back, and the direction of the endpoint was very close to the place where Thalassa died. In order to find the answer, the two of them rode a snowmobile. They followed the trail all the way into the forest. Then the two of them walked deeper in, and the result they saw left them stunned. Zephyr, who was half-eaten, was lying there right in front of the two of them. They confirmed the identity of the deceased. This person was exactly the boyfriend of the girl that her brother had mentioned. Now the case was quite clear for Zephyr. As long as they investigated at the construction site, they could find out the truth. Later, when the two of them talked, Astria also learned about Kale's painful past. His eldest daughter was friends with Thalassa. Suddenly one day, Thalassa called Kale. She said that his daughter was missing. Kale, who was worried, searched everywhere. Finally, he found his daughter in the snowy mountains. Because of the presence of wolves, his daughter had been torn to pieces. The remaining parts couldn't provide any clues. He was devastated. Kale still couldn't find out the cause of his daughter's death. Now Thalassa had also died tragically in the snowy mountains. In Kale's heart, besides sympathy and regret, there was more anger towards the perpetrators. The next day, Astria and all the police forces set out. They all rode snowmobiles to the drilling site together. But Kale didn't go with them. He preferred to look for opportunities from a hunter's perspective. Soon the group arrived at the construction site. A security guard took the initiative to come forward and talk. The sheriff asked him if Zephyr was at the construction site. The man said that Zephyr had quarreled with his girlfriend a few days ago. Then the two of them left the construction site one after another, and they still hadn't come back. While explaining, the other security guards also came over. At this time, Uchiyama Mantaro, why did everyone have bruises on their faces? The man just made up a random excuse and got through it. Today, the police asked to take a look at Zephyr's trailer. The man didn't refuse and was going to lead the way. And all of this was under Kale's observation. On the way, Astria brought up the topic of Thalassa. Unexpectedly, the other party revealed there after just a few words. These security guards obviously had something wrong, but they weren't afraid of the indigenous Indians. Both sides took out their handguns and confronted each other. At this moment, if anyone fired a shot, the consequences would be unimaginable. When everyone was nervous, Astria quickly stopped them. He revealed his identity as an FBI agent, and he was the first to put away his handgun. He stabilized the situation. Astria, who lacked experience, thought that she had extinguished the conflict. Little did she know that this was just the beginning. Everyone on the other side had weapons, although they were just hiding their edges for now. But the tense atmosphere was still lingering. Kale, who was in the distance, saw this scene. He then started to approach quickly with his shotgun. He had already sensed the danger. Soon the group was led to the trailer where the security guards lived together. Hunting didn't think twice and went up to knock on the door. But after knocking for a long time, there was no response. This round of shooting the police, the only one who survived was Astria, who was wearing a bulletproof vest, and half of the people on the other side were unharmed. He could even fire additional shots. The terrified idiot was already scared out of his wits. He quickly broke the glass and escaped. Astria, who had recovered, fired all the bullets in her gun in one go. He still managed to run into the forest, and Astria, who had no bullets left, was unable to chase after him. Soon Kale took Astria into the house. Kale found a piece of cloth. He asked Astria to temporarily press on the wound. He was going to find the last person, but he bluntly said that he wouldn't bring that person back. He would let that idiot stay in the snowy mountains forever. The security guard who had escaped couldn't have imagined in his wildest dreams that now he was just like Thalassa, who had escaped at the beginning his injured body, and his desperate heart told him all the time that death was not far away. Just as he was being suspicious and nervous, Kale, who had caught up, hit him with the butt of a gun and knocked him unconscious. When he woke up, he was already at the top of the snowy mountain. Kale threw away his shoes. Thalassa had fallen in the snow barefoot at that time. Now Kale was going to let him taste what it was like. Kale said that as long as he could confess everything, he would spare his life. Under the threat of death, the man described everything that had happened that day in detail. After learning the truth, Kale also kept his promise and untied him. Driven by the will to survive, the deceased Thalassa ran 6 miles in the snowy field at night, but this beast couldn't even run 600 meters. He lost his ability to move, seeing that the other party no longer had the strength to struggle. Kale went down the mountain expressionlessly. After that, he went to the hospital to visit Astria. He told her that the indigenous people in this place were no different from animals. Either they survived or they submitted. It's either survival or submission. After leaving the hospital, Kale went to visit Thalassa's father. Although the murderers had received their due punishment, but both of these men carried the pain that could never be erased. This film ends here. See you in the next video. Bye bye.